Everybody, welcome to the Unhappy Hour. Today is Saturday, January 13th, 2024. And my name is Brian Engelman. This is the Unhappy Hour here on thenewamericanmedia.com because the old American media has failed you. All right, this is a sports show. So if you regularly tune in to the New American Media content for current events, breaking news, political punditry, this is not one of those shows. This is a show where I'm going to talk about sports. And if you're interested in sports, thank you so much for joining us. We are going to be discussing the football season because it is playoff time, y'all. Playoff time. So it's the Unhappy Hour. Follow us in all of the places. Here, I'll put this up on the screen for you. But if you're interested in one of these pins, we only have one. How do I get this without the glare? These Unhappy Hour pins, only 100 of these will ever be made. And I don't have my... We have coasters, wooden coasters for the Unhappy Hour, but I don't have them in front of me today. Sorry about that. But if you're interested, send me something, and I will let you know how to get some. We'll mail them out to your house. So I just want to talk a little bit about the Cleveland Browns season. This has been a magical journey. The Cleveland Browns have suffered massive frustrations this season. They have had several setbacks beyond belief. And I want to kind of sum that all up and then get ready for the playoff game coming up today. First off, though, I want to go through breaking news in the NFL because it's a not Super Bowl weekend. It's an NFL playoff kickoff weekend. It looks like the Buffalo Bills game has been postponed, saying that the last time a playoff game has been moved because of weather, the NFL changed the time of a Steelers 2016 divisional round game in Kansas City from 1:05 p.m. to 8:20 p.m. Eastern time, and the Steelers won 18-16. But a snowstorm has forced the Steelers-Bills playoff game to be moved to Monday. So it was going to be Sunday at 1 p.m., but now because of an incoming snowstorm, it's being moved to Monday, 4:30 p.m. How unfortunate. Also, moving on in the NFL real quick before we get to the Cleveland Browns, Eagles wide receiver is going to be out for the playoffs. A.J. Brown is going to be out as the Eagles visit the Buccaneers. I'm pulling for the Buccaneers. I'm a Baker Mayfield fan. I'm sure you're well aware of that. It's looking like Antonio Pierce is the leading candidate for the Raiders job. Let's see if they lock him in. If they put a ring on it. All right. So I want to talk to you about the season that was. I did not go live with you this time for the final season game. What is all this? This is... Check this out. This was 9 years ago when the Buckeyes, the Ohio State Buckeyes, won the national championship. Hang on, Sloopy. This was in Hollywood, California, everybody. Wow. Isn't that fantastic? Man, it seems like a lifetime ago that the Ohio State Buckeyes were a team that could win a championship. It's all these great teams. Now, unfortunately, it was not our time again this year as we missed the playoffs yet again. But, all right, to the Cleveland Browns. I just want to talk about last week's game. I did have the opportunity to get some free tickets. Thank you so much for that opportunity. It was front row seats. I've never been front row at a Cavs game. I was front row. At a Browns game. I was front row at a Cavaliers game back in the day. But it was a unique experience. Got to meet up with a couple of Cleveland Browns super fans, including Paul Brown from the UK. That was pretty cool. Had an extra ticket, and he was able to utilize that, and just good times. But of course, the game was, I don't know, what do you call it? Depressing, sad. I mean, it gave the Bengals something to cheer about. It was relevant because the Bengals finished above 500, becoming, I don't know for how many years. It's super rare that every team in your division finishes above 500. The AFC North has just been a gauntlet to slog and suffer through. But the Cleveland Browns had the second best record, 11 wins, 6 losses on the season. Unfortunately, the Ravens had more. They had 13. But surprisingly, the Steelers got in the playoffs. That's a shocker. So yeah, as I mentioned, they'll be playing the Bills. We'll see how that all shakes out. But it, I've heard some people say, "Oh, well, it's too bad for Cincinnati that they'd been to the Super Bowl and the AFC Championship game. They've been really good with Joe Burrow." It's like, "Oh, well, their quarterback got injured, so what do you expect? Maybe next year." Well, that just kind of puts into perspective just how how damn special this Cleveland Browns season has been. Showing you that clip from the Ohio State Buckeye Championship, it's kind of important because we were missing several quarterbacks. Missing JT Barrett, missing Braxton Miller, and had to go to the third string quarterback, Cardale Jones. He didn't come to school to play no football. And that team, despite all odds, fought and fought and fought and came through in the clutch when it mattered. And if that isn't a perfect way to sum up this 2023-2024 Cleveland Browns season, I don't know a better way to sum it up. I really don't have any other way than to compare them to that team. When you're down to your third quarterback, people just write you off. And it's not, tell me, this sentence makes a lot of sense. Well, what do you expect from the Bengals? Yeah, they were about 500 team. They were 9-8. It just wasn't their year. They weren't meant to make the playoffs. You can't expect them to go on a run. Their star quarterback got injured. Well, the Cleveland Browns traded star quarterback number 1, Baker Mayfield. They let him go. Then they did trade him eventually to Carolina Panthers after the draft. Remember, they held on to him until after the draft because I feel like he could have landed with the Steelers, with the Colts. Any team drafting or signing free agent quarterbacks would have probably considered Baker Mayfield. But we held on to him, then did trade him. And then we did sold the farm to get Deshaun Watson. So that was kind of supposed to be the storyline of this season when we went to Houston and played them. The storyline of the game after we played them was Amari Cooper sets franchise record for receiving, I believe, 265 receiving yards with Joe Flacco at quarterback. So the NFL is not getting their perfect script with Deshaun Watson returning to Houston. But the way that Joe Flacco has played has been nothing short of inspiring. Dare I say, is this the most likable Cleveland Browns team you've ever rooted for? 2020 was great, but 2020 had bad special teams and bad defense. We should have beat Kansas City. We didn't. Helmet to helmet, and the defense letting Chad Henne run for 15 yards, 18 yards on third down. Like, we could have, would have, should have won that game, but we didn't. We didn't have good special teams or good defense. The 95 team, actually, this is the week that Nick Saban and Bill Belichick retired or got fired or whatever you want to call it. They were both Cleveland Browns coaches, defensive coordinator for Saban and head coach for Bill Belichick. That team, coming off of a really strong 1994 season, was supposed to be fantastic. They weren't. And it was really depressing. Started off good. I think they were 4-1. And then shortly after, Art Modell announced that he was taking the team and stealing them, moving them to Baltimore. And the team went in a tailspin and missed the playoffs, and it was just sad. So, the 95 team had the potential. We were robbed of a dynasty. That's a team that had Ozzie Newsome as director of pro personnel, who later moved over to the Ravens, drafted Ray Lewis and all those great players that pretty much led to the Baltimore Ravens dynasty that you're still seeing today. That guy could have been making draft picks for the Browns for the next 20 years. Saban at defensive coordinator, Belichick at head coach. Come on. But, even those teams weren't as beloved as this team. So 2020, I don't think is. 94, 95. We did make the playoffs in, what was that, 2002 with Tim Couch, and was it 99? We came back in 99. It was Tim Couch, and when against Pittsburgh, the Kevin Johnson pass hits him in the hands and he drops it. We never had a chance to get going. And granted, this Cleveland Browns team hasn't had a chance to get going because they're just getting started. But I will say I've had a little bit of reluctance to even want to do a show this past week. I'll get back to the reluctance in a second about the Bengals. But go back even further, 88, 89, you had those amazing teams with Bernie Kosar that took us to the AFC Championship game 2 times in a row. Those were nice playoff runs. But we won twice. You got to win 3 to get to the Super Bowl, 4 to take home the trophy. So we're in a 4-game season right now, folks. 4 games. Who's the first team to win 4 games this year in the playoffs? I guess if you're the number 1 seed, you only have to win 3 games. But were those Bernie Kosar years more likable than this team? I don't know. Equal? Those Browns were good. Kosar was a rookie in what, 86? I'm thinking back to like the NFL playing card. It's that green one with the stripes on it with Jerry Rice and Steve Young. So 87 there. Yeah, I think it was 88 and then 89. Or 87, 88, something like that. Were those teams more beloved than this team? I don't know. But you got to go at least back that far, 30 years, to get to something like that. But this Cleveland Browns team has fought adversity in a way that's inspiring. And that is the main point that I want to make. I want to give a big cheers out there on the Unhappy Hour to all of the Cleveland Browns fans who have been suffering through mediocre football, uneven, frustrating football, downright despicable football, and football that doesn't even resemble football for 25 years, since 99. This one's for you. This season is a success because of how we got here. I just want to say cheers, okay? Raise your glass. Cheers to you. You have a lot to be proud of. The way that we overcame adversity. I mean, what was it, the second game of the year, Nick Chubb goes down? Nick Chubb, arguably the heart and soul of this team. In his prime. Dare I say, the best running back in all of football. Finally ready to stop the split sharing with Kareem Hunt and take over in the backfield and put up monster numbers. If you're in that fantasy football sort of thing. But when he went down, I can't even tell you the pit that developed in my stomach, the sickness and sadness that I suffered through. And I'm sure many of you feel the same, that it was pretty difficult to feel like this season was going to be any different from all of these other loser seasons we've been through. Yes, the Baker year in 2020 was nice. Yes, 07 was good with Derek Anderson and Kellen Winslow and Braylon Edwards and won 10 games and still missed the playoffs somehow. Yes, I believe it was the 02 season with Tim Couch and Kelly Holcomb and Kevin Johnson. That was good, but, this season was special. The adversity, what'd they say, 26% of our payroll is on injured reserve? But when Nick Chubb went down, you kind of had that feeling that it was over. It just wasn't going to be. All that excitement. Okay, Deshaun's finally back. Because last year, he was suspended. Then he came back and he sucked. Let's face it, he sucked. Had a moment or two here or there, but it didn't even look like, to me, it didn't look like he understood the playbook. Maybe he looked at 1 or 2 reads, and then he just started running around like backyard football. Because, at recess, the quarterback, it was the kid that ran around the most, and you couldn't catch him, so he'd just run around and he'd throw it somewhere eventually. That's what Deshaun looked like. But to be fair, Deshaun came out and, didn't really look fantastic as the season started and was progressing forward. But then he started playing some better football against the Tennessee Titans. That was a very solid game. It was a good game. There were the injuries. Had to go to PJ Walker. Had to go to Dorian Thompson-Robinson. DTR was not ready for that first one, but he got a couple wins for us. PJ Walker. I was at that 49er game, and we were just kind of like, well, because the group of my friends, we try to go at least to one game every year, and it's like, well, Chubb's out and Watson's hurt. We're playing the number one team in football. Oh, well, maybe next year. Like we were trying to have a good time, but we weren't going to let it ruin our day if the Browns did not emerge victorious. And lo and behold, they fought, and they took down the number one team, the 49ers. This team is resilient. I'd love for somebody in the crack research team of the New American Media to go ahead and take a look and tell us how many teams in playoff history had beaten the number one seed in both conferences. Because the Browns have beaten the Ravens and beaten the 49ers. How often does that happen? Number one seed and number one seed. Because after that Tennessee Titans game with Deshaun Watson back in, plays the Ravens for the second time. Watson's allegedly healthy. At some point during the game, I think they might have said second quarter, takes a hit and breaks his shoulder. He comes out and he's perfect. Didn't have an incomplete pass in the whole second half. Come from behind victory, gutting out a tough win against the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore. That's the best game Deshaun Watson has played. Now, he didn't play a great first half. He played a great second half. And you just wonder, it's like, well, if you can get great play out of your quarterback, this defense can keep you in any game. This special teams can keep you in any game. And that's what you need to make an actual legitimate playoff run. Now, I do contend that in 2020, had they just called the helmet-to-helmet hit on Kansas City, that's a game we lost by less than 7 points. Instead of a turnover, we get that touchdown. We beat Kansas City, and now it's against a young Buffalo team. Who knows? And then we could have had what the NFL was trying to script, like that commercial where the football drops and all the greatest of all time are sitting around at the banquet, and they're all fighting to get the football. And Tom Brady hands Baker Mayfield his Super Bowl rings, and Baker's like, because you would have had a Baker and Brady Super Bowl. That wasn't meant to be. LeBron versus Kobe. There's certain matchups you wish you would have seen. And I don't mean in a regular season game. I mean like in a finals, in a Super Bowl. So I'm not going to use revisionist history and say that that Cleveland Browns team didn't have a chance. Because we did. We had everything that it took to get to the AFC Championship game. We just didn't get that call, and it was crucial. Intentional, accidental, infuriating, yes. But we could have been an AFC. And then you never know. Get to these games, and you just never know. It's like the way I think about the 1994 Cleveland Indians season. That's when all of those young players came up. Baerga, Bell, Lofton, Ramirez, Tomey, Alomar. And then the strike. We were crushing through the second half of the season. Because look, 94 ended with a suspended season. We came back in 95 and went to the World Series, giving the Braves their only World Series championship to that point. I mean, with that lineup, with Maddox and Glavine and Avery and Smoltz. I mean, the unbeatable lineup. So although I think the 2020 Browns could have done something, our special teams is so much better, and our defense is not even our defense now is perhaps the best in the league. And that's just something we did not have 3 years ago. We just didn't have it. So this is accumulation. Well, it's accumulation. It's accumulation of assets. So let's give out some awards here. I mean, Andrew Berry. Nobody's been more critical of selling the farm to get Deshaun Watson. But look, let's just focus on what you did do. You drafted DTR. All right, DTR didn't look that great, and he was zipping it like too fast, and receivers were dropping it because you don't have the touch. He's a rookie. He's a straight up rookie. When he got thrown to the Wolves against the Ravens, he wasn't ready, but he did win us a game. And he held it down, but now he's injured for the season. So we drafted him. This whole team, if you think about it, we're almost all homegrown talent. We've signed a couple of free agents on the defensive line, Zadarius Smith, Dalvin Tomlinson, a couple of people, but just think about it. Greg Newsome, Martin Emerson, Grant Delpit, Cedric Tillman, Ronnie Hickman. I mean, everybody, Garrett, Chubb, a lot of these players, they're homegrown talent. Now, not all of that was with this general manager, but when players went down, I mean, we went out and got PJ Walker off the street, and he won us that game against the 49ers. If he didn't get PJ Walker, maybe we don't win that game against the 49ers. Who knows? And if we don't get that win, the whole season could be different. Yeah, we were locked into the number 5 seed, but maybe we could have slipped out of there. We could have been on the outside looking in, hoping I sure hope these other teams lose so that we could get in the playoffs. Well, we had to give up on our kicker and got Dustin Hopkins. I mean, that fluke injury, man. That fluke injury on that kickoff, return for a touchdown, was really painful because Dustin Hopkins was a fantastic addition to our team. I will say I do have concerns about our kicker, Riley Patterson. I do not like the way that ball looks coming off of his foot. It is what it is. But we went out and got him. And perhaps one of the biggest moves of all, obviously, going and getting Jerome Ford as a rookie. He's a starter now. Drafting him as a rookie, and now he's season 2? I think he's season 2. But going out and getting Kareem Hunt off the couch, I think Kareem Hunt should get special consideration for comeback player of the year. I think it's a coin flip at number 1 between Joe Flacco and Baker Mayfield. We'll see how that shakes out. Baker played a whole season, and he has his first place team hosting a playoff game. When man, I can't even tell you how many people, he'll be out of the league. He'll be lucky to be a backup. He'll never be a starter again. He's a complete bum. Worst number 1 draft pick of all time. Okay. I'm accepting apologies on that because y'all were wrong. I mean, but Flacco has looked better than Baker, perhaps, but he's only had 5 games of a full resume to show for it on the season. But, I mean, would the Browns even be a playoff team if we had to start P.J. Walker or Jeff Driscoll? I was reluctant to even talk about that Bengals game because it was deflating. It was pointless. You kind of consider it that we got a bye week because it didn't matter. We were locked into the 5 spot. Not a lot to show for that game. David Bell getting a couple touchdowns, probably nice. But there's really no way you could have justified playing any of your starters, any of your star players, any more than you absolutely needed to in that game. Because that game didn't matter. 4 games of the playoffs matter. I wish we had a chance to keep the momentum going. And I liked that the team didn't really have a lot of time to think about it. You were just on a roll and you were crushing. Obviously, the fact that I'm saying this might be the most likable Cleveland Browns team of all time. Joe Flacco is a huge part of that. He's such a likable guy, and his game is likable. If his game isn't likable, I don't care what kind of guy he is. I just don't. But yeah, just having that extra week and all these extra interviews, I'm not worried about it. I just kind of wish it wasn't happening this way. I wish that Flacco didn't have too much time to smell his own farts, get too high in his own supply. But he's a Super Bowl winner. He's an MVP. Like, if you can't trust him to be level-headed and he's so appreciative of this moment. I love Bernie Kosar because, like, he was a hometown kid. He was from Youngstown. Like, he rigged the supplemental draft so that he could make sure he ended up in Cleveland as a Brown. Brilliant move. Power move. Likeable. But I really do like how Flacco plays. He throws one of the prettiest balls that you'll ever see in the NFL. And he's aggressive and he's smart. A few too many turnovers, yeah. But like I was just having this conversation. If you're backed up toward your own end zone and you throw a turnover, throw an interception, those are the ones that'll crush you. I would love to get like the actual stats on how many points were scored off of a self-inflicted interception on the Cleveland Browns this season. Because I feel like a lot of takeaways from the other teams, turnovers by us, occurred on our side of the 50. To the point where a lot of these instances, they're already in field goal range and some of them turned into touchdowns. If you take those away, I'd love to know what percentage of points scored on the season were only because of takeaways/turnovers. So that being said, I don't mind if Flacco throws a ball 50 yards in the air and it gets intercepted on the 10-yard line. That's a punt. Stay aggressive. Don't overthink what you're doing. Just keep doing what you're doing. Because those plays to Amari Cooper setting a franchise record? Yes, please. Yes, I'll take more of those. I'll take more of those every damn day of the week. But our GM has done a really good job going out to get Joe Flacco off the couch. When I saw that picture of him on the flight, I'm like, oh, God, are we really to Joe freaking Flacco? Because you look, for the past couple of years, he's been like on the Jets and not playing well and as a backup. And you're like, this guy's washed up. Obviously, that's why he's out of the league. But my goodness, does he have a second breath of energy? Does he look great out there or what? And I'm here for it. I'm so excited by this. And I think that's been my hesitation to do that post-Bengals show. Number one, because it didn't matter. Number two, like, I'm so excited for the playoffs. This is all you want. This is all you want as a Cleveland fan, is you want to have a chance, have a shot to get to the playoffs. And I am excited, but I don't want to get let down. I don't want to talk trash or get cocky or something. I don't want to be disappointed. And I haven't known how to communicate with you for the past week. So normally I do a show, the day after a game, and I was at that game. But, you walk away just deflated and like, okay, well, we made the playoffs. But we celebrated making the playoffs the week before. Another game that I was at on the season, by the way, against the Jets. That was epic. This season has been easily one of my favorite seasons of all time. But, the way you make it your favorite season, you win the damn Super Bowl. You go out there and you finish it. In the story of the Browns is a story of overcoming adversity and fighting. It's a story that the United States needs right now. I mean, we've been mired in such a funk. And after the housing crash, I remember being so salty with LeBron James for leaving to go to Miami. Take his talents to South Beach. I was like, come on, man. When the going gets tough, you don't flee. You stay and you figure it out. You work harder. And it was a missed opportunity to become an American legend. I think the comeback story against the Golden State Warriors, the best regular season team of all time by the Cavaliers. Cavs obviously gained legendary status because of that. But, just leaving when the going gets tough, the tough shrink. That's not a fun story. It's not that the Bengals shrunk. But, I mean, they and it's arguable that they got almost the same quality of quarterback play out of their backup. It's arguable that the Browns got better with our backup in Joe Flacco. But all the other injuries on the offensive line and the defensive secondary and Anthony Walker. I mean, I could sit here and just rattle off most of our roster. Most of our roster has missed significant playing time. Missing a lot of key starters that are just done for the year. And that's the story that you want, the story of resilience, the story of intestinal fortitude. That's why you watch sports. It's not always about stacking a roster and just doing what's expected. It's about exceeding expectations, right? Exceeding expectations. Oh, this thing has faded. Look at that. Check out this color. See how orange that is? And look how unorange that is. And so it says exceeding all expectations, UAO. That was the motto for our University Activities Organization. And exceeding expectations is what this Browns team has done. So I want to leave you with this. Super proud of this team. Proud of this team. Regardless of how things play out. There's this feeling that imagine somebody suffers a medical catastrophe and they pull through, and then it could be said you're living, you're on borrowed time, you're on bonus time. You're on bonus time. That car accident could have ended you. That stroke, that medical event that you had could have wiped you out. You could have been gone. Let me see if Jay wants to join the show. You could have been gone, but you weren't. You're on borrowed time. It's all bonus from here. It's bonus time. Live it up. It's bonus time. And that's what the Cleveland Browns have been this year. It's been bonus time. I love the fact that they had a chance to make the playoffs. And look, once you're in, once your ticket's punched, Lord knows how far you can go. It's anybody's guess. It's 4 wins or 3 wins to a Super Bowl title. So there's this feeling that, look, even if the Browns did somehow, if the Browns were unable to win at Houston in a couple of hours, you just kind of, put your hands up and go, man, they fought Watson and Chubb and Conklin and Jed Wills and DeJuan Jones, all these injuries. They fought. I'm proud of them either way. It's all right. It feels like we're playing on house money. This is bonus time. You're like, how disappointed could you possibly be if the Browns lose a game? Now, of course, the answer for me is 100 level. Radiating the squiggle lines if I was a cartoon. But not really. I mean, I understand it. I fully expect to win today and to dominate today. I think we're a better team in all facets. But that being said, it's also okay, however this plays out, because we got to be proud of this team. And we got to be proud of this organization stabilizing itself. At a time where all these coaches are getting fired and people are moving around, the Browns are stable. Just appreciate being stable for a second. So we need to have that appreciation and remember that and stay a little even keel about this, but also allow yourself to feel some joy. I've been guarding myself this whole damn week. I'm trying not to get too excited. In about a half hour, I'm not going to be able to stop. I'm going to start bouncing up and down like I was a kid on, in middle school or elementary school, trying to keep it contained, sitting at a desk. I'm just bouncing. I can't wait to go to recess and play some sports or something. But for now, we need to appreciate it. And I want to leave you with this. This is the part I was trying to get to. Remember back to your favorite Browns teams. Remember when you were a little kid growing up. Whichever generation, I mean, some of us had different things. Other Browns fans have generations of stories. Some remember the championship in '64. Some remember the cardiac kids. Some love the strike seasons where you had Don Strock coming in. Talk about quarterbacks off the street. Of course, Bernie, those early 2000s, once the Browns came back, 07, 2020, and now today. Try to take a little bit of time and build a memory with your family. I don't know if you have any little kids around. Maybe you have some cousins or extended family or neighbors. Try to build some memories. Because I can still remember the brown carpet that I was laying on. I was kind of doing one of these, watching the double overtime game against the Cleveland Browns against the New York Giants. Double overtime in the playoff. I remember the energy, my family, and cheering and yelling and clapping and oh no and yes, and just that energy, that vibe. I was tempted to just sit back and watch the game today, but I think I'm going to go try to create some memories with human beings, because part of that 2020 season that could have been special. I think we were robbed by that Kansas City Chiefs officiating crew and by shitty defense. The Jim Donovan play, the Jim Donovan call, the voice of the Browns, legendary voice of the Browns. He's been battling, I believe it's leukemia, blood cancer. When the Browns clinched, Nathan Zagura, his color commentator next to him, he said, Jim, in 2020, when the Browns made the playoffs, you said, congratulations to the Browns making the playoffs. A fantastic season. But the only thing missing is all of you, because this is the COVID year. They played and beat up on the Steelers, essentially retired little Ben Roethlisberger and Heinz Field. We retired both of them by whooping them. We beat them 2 games in a row, by the way. One to make the playoffs and then one in the playoffs. But when we made the playoffs that year, it was the only thing missing is all of you. But tonight, you're all here to celebrate. And having had a chance to go to that game, the New York Jets game, the nighttime game, just the energy of it was so fantastic. Hearing the chants of all the crowd. I can't tell you how many games I've walked down the stairs. We were up high and we had to go walk down those zigzag stairs. Just how many times that was a miserable experience for me. But this time it was like, Flacco, Flacco, Flacco. Like just people were chanting and cheering and laughing and crying. Like people were so happy. And we were robbed of that in 2020, the last time we were in the playoffs. Because there was hardly anybody in the stands. They weren't doing it that way at that time. And I really do think, in hindsight, I think that's why so many people were unable to have that personal, physical, visceral, emotional connection to the Cleveland Browns of 2020. It's because we didn't have fans in the stands. Should have had 60 to 80,000 people in all those stands, or all those games in the stands, and we just didn't. And so I just don't think you really remember that team as good as they were, as good as they could have been. But this is our chance. So my parting words to you, and I'm going to get ready for pregame and have a great time. I'm gonna try to enjoy this game with some friends. Maybe old friends, maybe new friends, we'll see. But football equals family. That's the name of a documentary that I made. It's on YouTube. If you go to The New American Media, youtube.com/thenewamericanmedia, or just go on YouTube and type football equals family. It's a full documentary I made. Reflog_18, Chris McNeil. He put on a parade when the Browns went 0-17. And so I flew in from Los Angeles, and the weather was 0 degrees with -17 wind chill. It was friggin' brutal. And I kind of followed him around and with his family, and they were telling stories of, similar stories about how the Browns were going to come back. They were in the stands in that double overtime game against the Jets. I was in my living room, and the McNeil grandpa was, at the last championship game in '64. The cardiac kids, and that, like there's just stories of generations. And so, if you're in your teens, if you're a tiny little kid, or if you're in your teens or 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, like every playoff run could be our last with this group of people. So go enjoy it. Football is family. It's more than a sport. It's about camaraderie. It's about not being disappointed and embarrassed of being from where that asshole Tim McCarver calls it the mistake on the lake. Cleveland isn't a punchline. And the people from Northeast Ohio, Browns fans all across the globe, like I said, meeting Paul Brown at the Bengals game, hanging out with him from jolly old England. It's like the Browns backers are everywhere. We had Browns backers all over Los Angeles. Met Eric Metcalf out there. It is a community. It is family. So if you have the ability, try to get to a position where you can go enjoy this with your community, with your friends, with your family, make some new friends. Hey, make some new family, if you know what I mean. Because that's what it's about. It's about the camaraderie. It's about the ride. It's about the experience. And I'm so damn proud of this team. There have been seasons where I'm excited until we start sucking, and it's just there's not a lot to build on. And I might not wear this hat, this Browns hat, very often. Put it up on the shelf and just, not a lot of wind in my sails. But regardless of how this season turns out, I will forever be proud of this Browns team who did not phone it in. Stefanski did a great job keeping it together. I already mentioned Andrew Berry. And, of course, probably the coach of the year, Jim Schwartz. He's our defensive coordinator. But, man, does he have that defense playing at a level that's even through the injuries could be the best defense in the NFL. And when you're that good on defense, you can play with anybody in any game in any scenario. And this might be our best shot ever to win a damn Super Bowl. So I'm not content with a decent season. I'm not content making the playoffs. I expect to beat the Houston Texans. Do you see that where Houston Texans played the Tennessee Titans, but the Tennessee Titans wore the Houston Oilers jersey? It was Houston versus Houston. My brain hurt, and it still messed up my brain when I just said that, trying to talk about the Texans. I fully expect to go beat the Texans. I fully expect to win the next game. I don't know if that's going to be Baltimore or not. I guess they reseed the rankings, and we'll see how it all shakes out. But I fully expect us to be in every game that we play and have a legitimate chance to go to the Super Bowl and a legitimate chance to win the Super Bowl. This might be our most well-rounded, most resilient team of destiny that I've ever cheered for. So I want to thank you for joining me here at the Unhappy Hour for all these years. Let's make it a happy hour. I remember we changed the name of it to the Happy Hour. It was so weird to say that when the Cavaliers won their championship. I made family that day with my downstairs neighbor. Now, I knew Scott. I'd helped Scott with some things. I'd worked with him in the community on some stuff. We butted heads on some things. Just like family. You have highs and lows and in-betweens. And, they were renovating my place, getting rid of some black mold because of a gutter leak issue that got inside of my walls. And he let me shower at his place when he was out of town. But I remember he was upstairs with me. He didn't have cable. And I was watching the Cleveland Cavaliers Game 7 with him. And I was just weeping like a baby in front of him. I was so happy to lift that curse. Because that was a curse. There was a Cleveland curse. And when you're talking about the greatest of all time, you can dislike LeBron for a million reasons, and I'm with you. But Michael Jordan never had to break a Chicago curse. LeBron James did break that damn Cleveland curse. And I cried. I made family that day with Scott, my downstairs neighbor. We became closer as friends. We became family because of sports. And for all the divisive shit that they try to pull on ESPN, all the stuff they paint and just, I'm not reliving it. Had years of this. Sports are supposed to unite. That's where I'm focused. Sports is uniting us today. So go out there and cheer for your team. If you have the opportunity, try to spend some time with some old friends, some family, some new friends, and make some new memories, because football does equal family. Check out the documentary if you want. I think it's pretty neat. It was so cold, my camera froze. My batteries froze up. I had to shoot a lot of it on my cell phone as a backup. God, I'm glad I did. I had several batteries ready, and it was so cold they just froze. They would not function. Go make some memories. Go Browns. I'm super proud of you. This is the Unhappy Hour on the New American Media. My name is Brian Engelman. I appreciate you. I love you. Go Browns. We'll talk to you again soon. Take care, everybody.